John chapter 5, here we go. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now this is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate, a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" Interesting, huh? The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I am going, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked. Now that day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath, and it is not lawful for you to take up your bed." But he answered that's so crazy. He answered them, the man who healed me, that man said to me, "Take up your bed and walk." They asked him, "Who is the man that said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, as there was a crowd in the place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who healed him. And this was why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is working until now, and I am working." All right, swig of coffee, swig of tea, whatever you got. Let's go, folks. All right, let's dig in. First things first, the word Bethesda. Any of you Bible scholars in the live chat know what Bethesda means? I'll only give you a few seconds, but Bethesda, it's actually translated for house of mercy. House of mercy. And this particular spot, this was a place where people would come and they were looking for a miracle, like some kind of a healing, okay? But it was a pool that actually, the way this all started, it was a pool that they used for the ceremonial waters in the temple. This is where they would go get the water for any kind of need in the temple. So there was already this stigma that something holy must be going on there. And the legend has it that an angel would stir up the water. An angel would stir up the water. Now, we now know that it was probably geologic. It was probably a hot spring or something like that, but because the waters would get bubbled up, and it would happen with some degree of regularity. And, that combined with the temple made the folks think that there was some kind of miraculous healing in this water that was connected somehow to the temple. But it was just an assumption. It was simply an assumption. Now, 38 years. Can you even fathom 38 years? I can't fathom 38 days laying around. Just laying around for 38 days. 38 years. For a lot of people, that's a lifetime. Laying around, waiting to get into that pool, just for the hope, just for the shot that those waters might be stirred up by an angel. Somehow it's connected to the temple. And this guy, for all of his waiting, he had put faith in the water. I can't fathom that idea that he thought, well, you know what? There's got to be some kind of healing in that water, until you realize we kind of do the same thing with modern medicine, don't we? Oh boy. Don't we? We expect a pill to fix us up when the power of God is evident all around you. All you have to do is look around and see the mighty, mighty hand of the Creator of all things. Now, I am not suggesting we don't go to the doctor, because obviously we need to go to the doctor. But what I am suggesting is we put a lot of faith in stuff that man makes, and we ignore the Creator of all things. Yes, he did give us medicine, and I'm not suggesting you don't go or anything like that. I'm not suggesting you don't utilize the gifts and healing power that God has blessed us with and given us. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we put far too much faith in stuff rather than what God has provided. Okay? Looks like somebody up north 2 wheels may have a very similar idea of things that we do. You might have to look at that comment section there, and I agree. Anyway, it's just kind of a funny parallel that we will look at somebody who will sit there for so long waiting for a healing and put faith in the wrong thing. Don't you think? So this guy, he's been hoping and praying that the water would heal him, and Jesus shows up. Now, Jesus had mercy on him. Don't you think that's amazing? He had mercy on this guy who, even though he was putting faith in the wrong thing, he could see. He could see past all the stuff and the hurt and the loneliness and the rejection and the constant desire to be made whole, to be right again. And he could see that that man thought he needed the water that was in that pool, but he really needed Jesus. And Jesus gave him both. He gave him healing, not the water. He gave him healing, but he also gave him spiritual depth. So when we start reading here and we see that the Jews are all upset, they're bent out of shape about the Sabbath, right? Doesn't that just, that makes my blood boil. I got to be honest. It makes my blood boil when you look at this and you go, okay, they just watched a guy who they knew had been sitting there for 38 years get healed. And instead of rejoicing in the God that obviously gave him the healing, what do? They're mad that he picked up his mat on the wrong day. Oh, people. So I came up with a few new commandments that these guys probably should have etched on the wall of their own temple. So hear me out. Why don't you guys actually come up with a few comments or potential, let's call them potential commands that the Pharisees or Sadducees may have had on their walls at their house. Like we hang up reminders and different things. Well, these are possible ones that they probably had on their walls, just postulating, thinking out. Thou shalt not, here's a new one for them, thou shalt not heal on the Sabbath. Okay, that should be a command in their rule book, right? How about this one? Thou shalt not carry a mat on the Sabbath. That's a pretty good one. That should be etched in the marble. Thou shalt not leave an invalid's mat as litter on the ground on the Sabbath. It's rubbish. All of it's rubbish. What are your top commands or commands that they would have probably had? It's so messed up. They're ignoring the actual human that was healed. It does blow my mind. I mean, how could you possibly see this guy who was healed and go, you know what? He left litter on the ground. He left litter on the ground. These guys are like the ultimate, like, Nazi Karen HOA. Your grass is 1/10 of an inch over onto the sidewalk people. That's these guys. It's like, are you kidding me? Oh, gosh, they drive me nuts. I'm going to start throwing things. Okay, so the Jewish leadership starts grilling him, right? And they're wanting to find out what the deal was. Now, here's something that people don't see right off the bat, that this was an admission of Jesus that he was God, okay? This whole thing, because when you look back, who can heal the body? Well, a lot of prophets healed. That's not a big deal. A lot of different healers healed. But sins, when you say that, your sins are forgiven, that is only done by God. That's the only thing that can be done by God, period. Nobody else can forgive sins. So here's the thing, verse 13. Now the man who Now the man who had been healed did not know who he was, meaning Jesus, for Jesus had withdrawn. And as the crowd was in his place, afterward Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." Now, why did he say that? Did Jesus know about some hidden sin of his? Did he have insight into this man's life and know, oh my gosh, he's been a total curmudgeon futz in this, and this, and he needs to be healed of those major things? Or is he sinful like all of us? Or is this the admission that Jesus is God, because only God can heal sin? Now, here's another part to this, because we only see what's right in front of us, right? What's there, we can't add to it, except that we do know historically the Jews believed that if you had some kind of physical ailment like this, if you were born with a defect, or you had some kind of muscular thing, or whatever it may be, maybe you're born without a limb, or whatever the physical defect may be, they believed that you sinned in your mother's womb before you were born, or your parents did. And somehow it was your own fault that you did this sinning before you were even born, or your mom and dad did. And so this not only could have been, hey, I know about your secret sin, or you're a sinner just like you and me, or this could have been Jesus admitting and confessing, look, whatever it is that you think you did, I've already forgiven it. But only God can do that. That's part of the big point. He's saying, I am God right here. That's what this is. And it's also probably, can you imagine the sigh of relief? Think about it. What if you had grown up your whole life thinking, what did I do? What have I done? I must deserve this. God must be beating me down. And I obviously, I must have done something so bad that he punished me by making me have this ailment, and my whole life in pain and dragging myself around. It's deserved. How evil is that thought? That somehow, before he was even born, he deserved the ailment. God doesn't do that. So this moment when Jesus is saying, hey, guess what? Go and sin no more. And you're healed. You're healed. He healed him physically and he healed him spiritually, and only God can do that. Only God can forgive those sins. And so that is why the Jews started flipping out big time, right? They were already hot and bothered and upset about the Sabbath. But that, when he started saying effectively, hey, guess what? I'm forgiving sins. That was the equivalent thing of saying, I am God. That is what, well, verse 18. This is why the Jews were seeking to kill him, or seeking all the more to kill him, because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal to God. This is all connected. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what are your thoughts? You see, here's the thing. Whatever healing we need, God can provide it. Spiritual, physical, emotional. God can provide it. And he loves us so much. He wants to provide it. I feel like sometimes we just push him away and keep him at bay. And we don't need to do that. Just receive whatever it is that he wants to bless you with. So I'm going to grab some comments. So if you're watching the replay, I'm going to hit stop here in a second, but I'm going to continue on with the live stream because I want to read some of the things and engage with them. So if you want to be here for the live comments, come on back next time. But here we go. Oh, you guys that are watching the replay, have a blessed day.